CCP 726, or California Code of Civil Procedure 726. The one action rule, or the so-called one action rule, and the security first rule. Hello, I'm John McConnin, UpsideDownRealEstate.com and FavoriteRealEstate.com. I'm an attorney and a real estate broker, and we get to use this one action rule as negotiations and loan workouts and short sales on a frequent basis, because there's still, especially lenders back east, don't realize it, or at least they pretend that they don't realize that they're supposed to go against the security first, or that they only have one helping. It's the security or a personal suit. But if the client in the personal suit very early in the beginning of the case says, "Hey, I don't want a personal suit. I want them to go against the security first," the bank has to go against the security first. So this is why this one action rule is famous. People throw the terms around all the time, but it is a very powerful rule, and it basically tells the banks that if you take a security for the repayment of a loan against the property, you're going to have to go against that property. You're going to have to take that property first. And that's the end. You've got one action. You don't get two. You don't get property first and then get to go against the person for a money judgment. Now remember, this applies to one loan. This applies to the foreclosing lender. It could even be the second. But the foreclosing lender has only one action. Once the security is wiped out, that other person is frequently the so-called sold-out junior. And if you're a sold-out junior of a recourse loan, you can go against someone for the money judgment. So one action rule works against, generally, the first lender, forcing the first lender to foreclose, and it leaves the second lender with a shot at getting a judgment for the entire amount of the loan, with exceptions. One of those exceptions, of course, would be if it was a 580B protected loan, then that loan would become non-recourse after a foreclosure. With an exception, the banks are trying to make of HELOCs, but most lawyers don't buy the HELOC exception in most circumstances. Another issue to look at, and it's a tough one, is if the first and the second are owned by the same entity. When the first forecloses, the second's rights are merged into those of the first. Now, this is a very interesting issue, and it's one of the reasons it's very hard to get true ownership information out of a lot of banks. You call up Chase every time they tell you they own the loan, although they're apparently servicing 70% of the loans. But they always tell you they own it, because they don't really want you to know who these entities are. But it'll be interesting to see if the courts consider, like Chase and Chase, is that one entity? Chase Home Loans or Chase Finance, is that one entity? If the servicers are servicing for a syndication pool, is that syndication pool, who are the owners there? Because if we could find out that every owner in that syndication pool was like the owner in the other syndication pool, maybe this law would apply. So there are exceptions. The important parts to know about 726 in summary, again, is that you can force the lender into only taking one bite at the recovery pie, and that with a lawyer, you can probably also force the lender to go against the security first. Thank you, John McConnin, UpsideDownRealEstate.com and FavoriteRealEstate.com.